Racist thugs thought they could bully a poor black mother without consequences. But when her son stepped out of the car and revealed his identity, their arrogance turned to fear in the most satisfying way. This is the story that will leave you breathless and cheering for justice. The summer heat radiates off the pavement as Marissa Johnson pulls her worn Honda into the Oak Ridge gas station. The air conditioning in her car had given up years ago, and her blue hospital scrubs cling to her skin after a grueling 12-hour night shift. Her dark eyes, lined with exhaustion, scan the quiet suburban station. Just a few cars, despite it being morning rush hour. At 45, Marissa carries herself with a quiet dignity earned through 2 decades of working hospital floors, raising a son alone, and navigating spaces that weren't always welcoming. She parks at pump number 3, shoulders dropping with relief as she switches off the engine. Just a quick fill-up, then home to sleep. As she inserts her credit card, she notices 3 men in their 30s lounging near the station entrance. Their eyes lock onto her immediately. Marissa has lived long enough to recognize that look, the subtle shift in their posture, the way their conversation halts mid-sentence. She keeps her movements deliberate, focuses on the task at hand. "You lost, sweetheart?" The tallest one calls out, his tone falsely friendly. "Never seen you around these parts before?" Marissa doesn't respond, keeps her eyes on the gas pump numbers as they climb. The men spread out, one leaning against the ice chest near her car, another walking closer to block her view of the pump. The third man, wearing a red baseball cap, positions himself near her driver's door, not touching her car, not saying anything explicitly threatening, just close enough to make escape difficult. "My buddy asked you a question," Red Cap says, louder now. "This neighborhood has had some break-ins lately. People who don't belong here causing trouble." Marissa's heart beats faster, but her hands remain steady on the pump. Her mind races through options. Should she confront them? Ignore them? Try to leave without filling up completely? "I've lived in Oak Ridge for 20 years, she finally says, her voice calm and measured. "Just coming home from my shift at Memorial Hospital." The words hang in the air for a moment before Redcap snorts. "Right, and I'm the president." He looks her up and down, eyes lingering on her car's peeling paint and dented bumper. "That's why you're driving this piece of junk? Sure don't look like any nurse I've ever seen." Marissa feels the familiar sting of these encounters, the weight of constantly having to prove herself. Her son Marcus's words echo in her mind. "Stand your ground, Mom. Don't let them see you're scared." But she also remembers the news stories, confrontations that turned violent in seconds, over nothing. "We're just looking out for our neighborhood," the tall one says, stepping closer. "You understand?" The third man, silent until now, edges toward the pump. His elbow catches his soda cup, sending brown liquid splashing across Marissa's scrubs and white shoes. "Whoa," he says, raising his hands with exaggerated innocence. "Maybe if you weren't standing in everybody's way." The cold liquid seeps through the fabric against her skin as the men exchange smirks. Marissa stands perfectly still, the gas pump clicking to indicate it's full, the smell of gasoline and cola mixing in the morning heat. Marissa takes a deep breath, the kind she's learned to take over years of similar encounters. This isn't the first time, and the sad truth settling in her stomach tells her it won't be the last. Her scrubs now bear a large brown stain, but it's the familiar weight of these moments that truly exhausts her, the constant calculation of how to respond, how to protect herself without making things worse. Through the glass windows of the convenience store, she spots the young attendant watching, his eyes darting between her and the men before looking down at his phone. No help coming from that direction. Marissa's mind flashes back to when Marcus was 13, the first time someone followed him through a department store, accusing him of shoplifting when all he'd done was try on a jacket. How she'd sat with him that night at their small kitchen table, tears in his eyes as she explained the unfair reality they faced. "It's not about what you did," she had told him, her voice steady despite her breaking heart. "It's about what some people will always see first." After Thomas died, a heart attack that took her husband when Marcus was only 8, she'd worked double and sometimes triple shifts at the hospital. Night shift paid more, and every extra dollar went toward Marcus's college fund. She refused to let her son's future be defined by loss or limitations. At the next pump over, 2 older white women in tennis clothes watch the scene unfold. One quickly looks away when Marissa glances in their direction, suddenly very interested in her purse. The other woman frowns, concern etched on her face, but she remains frozen, uncertain. Marissa has been to this gas station dozens of times over the years. 3 months ago, it was a clerk following her through the aisles. Last year, a man questioned whether the credit card she used was actually hers. Different faces, same story, same location. Her palms sweat around the gas pump handle, though her face remains a practiced mask of calm. Years of hospital crises have taught her to keep her expression neutral, even when her mind races and her heart pounds. Right now, she's calculating the quickest path to her driver's door, wondering if she should just leave the gas cap open and drive away. "Hey guys, check this out," the tall man says, pulling out his phone. He walks around to the back of her car and takes a photo of her license plate. "I think we should report this suspicious behavior. What do you think?" The others laugh, pulling out their phones too. "Good idea, Mike. Never can be too careful these days," Redcap replies loudly. "Who knows what she's really doing here?" The third man circles around, getting uncomfortably close as he pretends to inspect her car. "Probably casing houses. Nice houses around here. Lots of valuable stuff." Marissa reaches for the gas nozzle to finish up when her phone rings from inside the car. The familiar ringtone, Marcus's special tone. He always calls after her night shifts, making sure she got off work safely. A small ritual they've maintained since he left for college. The ringing continues as she replaces the pump and secures her gas cap, the men still circling. Should she tell Marcus what's happening? He would be furious, might even call the police. Or worse, try to handle it himself from afar, which would only leave her feeling more helpless. No, she can manage this herself. She's handled worse in the hospital's emergency room. As Marissa opens her car door to reach for her phone, Redcap suddenly lunges forward. His hand darts through the opening and grabs her phone from the center console. "Who's calling you so early, huh?" he says, looking at the screen. "Marcus," he reads aloud, his voice mocking. "Who's Marcus?" "Your welfare office checking in." The other men laugh as Marissa's practiced calm finally cracks. "Give me my phone," she demands, her voice firm despite the fear coursing through her. "That's my son." "Your son, huh?" Redcap holds the phone just out of reach. The ringing stopped now. "Let's see what Sonny Boy has to say about his mama being somewhere she doesn't belong." The tall man leans closer, his breath hot with the smell of coffee. "Maybe we should answer. Tell him his mum's having some car trouble. Needs to come get her." Marissa feels a cold dread spreading through her chest. The situation is spiraling beyond her control. The phone starts ringing again, Marcus calling back, worried now that she didn't answer the first time. The man with the red cap looks at the phone, then at Marissa, his smile twisting with mean enjoyment at her distress. His thumb hovers over the answer button. "Let's see what Marcus has to say, shall we? Give me my phone back. Now." Marissa's voice cuts through the morning air, sharper than she intended, but firm with maternal authority. The kind of voice that stops patients and doctors alike in their tracks on her hospital floor. Redcap hesitates, the phone still ringing in his hand. Before he can respond, the distinctive sound of tires on gravel draws everyone's attention to the gas station entrance. A white police cruiser pulls in, parking near the convenience store entrance. The officer inside doesn't exit, just sits there filling out paperwork, unaware of the situation unfolding at pump number 3. The atmosphere shifts instantly. Red Cap lowers the phone, his demeanor softening as he steps away from Marissa. "We were just having some fun," he says loudly, glancing at the police car. "No harm meant, right, boys?" The others nod, their threatening postures dissolving into casual stances. "Just joking around," the tall one agrees, backing up several steps, making sure everything's on the up and up in the neighborhood. Marissa reaches for her phone, but Red Cap still holds it just beyond her grasp, hesitating. The ringing stops again. At that moment, a black SUV with government plates pulls smoothly into the station, parking directly beside Marissa's Honda. The contrast between the vehicles is stark, her aging sedan next to the gleaming official vehicle. The men exchange glances, uncertainty replacing their previous confidence. Red Cap finally hands the phone back to Marissa, his movement jerky and reluctant. "Here, we were just concerned citizens," he mutters, eyes now fixed on the SUV. Marissa takes her phone, slipping it into her pocket without looking at it. Her shoulders straighten as a small, knowing smile touches her lips. "That's my son," she says quietly. "He's here to pick me up." All 3 men turn to stare as the driver's door of the SUV opens. Marissa Johnson steps out, 25 years old, 6 feet tall, wearing a crisp navy suit and tie. His movements are deliberate and controlled as he adjusts his jacket, revealing the FBI badge clipped to his belt. His eyes, so much like his mother's, immediately assess the scene before him. Marcus has been here before, not this exact gas station, but this scenario. The summer after his 16th birthday, a store owner had followed him through every aisle, later claiming he fit the description of someone who'd shoplifted the day before. The countless times he'd been pulled over driving home from college. The neighbor who called police when he was moving into his own apartment. He doesn't rush, doesn't raise his voice as he approaches. His expression remains professional, neutral, though his eyes briefly meet his mother's in silent communication. "Everything okay here, Mom?" he asks, standing beside her now. His tone is conversational, but his posture is protective. "These gentlemen were just leaving," Marissa replies. The men stare at Marcus, then at his badge, then back at Marissa. The cognitive dissonance plays across their faces. The same woman they'd been intimidating moments ago is the mother of an FBI agent. The same young black man they might have harassed under different circumstances now stands before them with the full authority of the federal government. "Just a misunderstanding," the tall one says, his voice higher than before. "We were helping this lady with her car." Marcus doesn't respond to them directly, instead turning to his mother. "Are you all right? I got worried when you didn't answer my call." "I'm fine," Marissa says. "My phone was temporarily unavailable." Marcus nods, then turns to face the 3 men. His expression remains calm, professional. The face he's practiced in training, the measured response he's learned is most effective. "Gentlemen," he says simply, "I'd appreciate some identification." "We didn't do anything wrong," Red Cap protests, but his voice wavers. "I didn't say you did," Marcus replies evenly, "but I always document interactions involving my family, professional habit." He pulls out his phone and takes photos of their faces, then walks around to capture images of their vehicles and license plates. He doesn't threaten, doesn't raise his voice, just methodically collects information in a way that makes the men shift uncomfortably from foot to foot. The woman, who had been watching with concern at the next pump, approaches cautiously. "Excuse me," she says to Marissa. "Are you okay? I was about to call someone when I saw what was happening." The 3 men look at the woman in disbelief, then at each other. The reality of how their actions appeared to others seems to dawn on them for the first time. "We were just leaving," the tall one mumbles, and the 3 begin backing toward their vehicles, their earlier confidence completely evaporated. "We're going to be late for work," the tall one mutters, already backing toward a pickup truck parked near the convenience store. "Yeah, we gotta go," Redcap agrees, not meeting anyone's eyes. "Like I said, just making sure everything was okay." The third man simply turns and walks away without another word. Within moments, all three have climbed into their vehicles and driven off, leaving behind only the lingering tension in the air. As their taillights disappear down the suburban street, Marcus turns to his mother. His professional demeanor softens, and for a moment, he's just a son worried about his mum. He wraps his arms around her in a tight hug. "Are you really okay?" he asks quietly. "I'm fine," Marissa assures him, though her hands still tremble slightly as she returns the embrace. "Nothing I haven't handled before." Marcus steps back, looking at the cola stain spreading across her scrubs. His jaw tightens. "What happened?" "An accident," Marissa says, the word heavy with irony. At least, that's what they called it. The moment brings back a sharp memory from years ago. Marcus at 16, coming home with a torn backpack and a bruised shoulder after some boys from school had accidentally bumped into him repeatedly in the hallway. How she'd sat with him at that same kitchen table, teaching him the delicate balance of standing his ground, without giving anyone the excuse they were looking for. "Keep your dignity," she'd told him. "But come home safe. Always come home safe." Marcus sighs, running a hand over his close-cropped hair. "You know, I wasn't just happening by. I'm actually working in this area now." "Working?" Marissa looks surprised. "I thought your assignment was downtown." "It was, but we've had multiple reports of harassment in this neighborhood, targeting specific people." He doesn't need to elaborate on who those specific people might be. After the third complaint this month, the Bureau decided to look into potential civil rights violations. The woman from the neighboring pump approaches hesitantly. "I'm sorry," she says to Marissa. "I should have said something sooner. I saw what was happening, but I—" She trails off, the guilt evident in her eyes. "Most people don't," Marissa responds without judgment. "I'd like to make a statement," the woman continues, straightening her shoulders, "about what I saw, if it would help." As they talk, the convenience store door swings open, and a middle-aged man in a manager's shirt hurries out, followed by the police officer who had been sitting in the cruiser. "Ma'am," the manager calls, approaching their group. "I saw everything on our security cameras. I called the officer here when those guys started bothering you." The officer, a woman in her 30s with a tight ponytail, nods in confirmation. "We've had other complaints about that group. They've been hassling people at several businesses in the area." Over the next 20 minutes, statements are taken, security footage is reviewed, and information exchanged. The officer is professional but forthright. "I'll be honest," she says, closing her notepad. "Harassment charges are hard to make stick unless there are direct threats, but this adds to a pattern we're building, and having an FBI agent as a witness doesn't hurt." She offers a small smile. When the paperwork is complete and the others have returned to their duties, Marissa and Marcus stand alone by their vehicles. "It shouldn't take a badge," Marissa says quietly, looking at her son's FBI credentials. "For them to see you as human, for them to treat me with respect." "No," Marcus agrees. "It shouldn't." He pauses, looking around the gas station that has become an impromptu crime scene. "But things are changing, Mom. Slowly, but they are." "Because of people like you," Marissa says, reaching up to straighten his tie with motherly precision. "Not because of your badge, because of who you are, who you've always been." Marcus smiles, the weight of the morning's events still in his eyes, but tempered now with determination. "I'm organizing some community meetings, getting residents together with local police, business owners, creating dialogue." "Small steps," Marissa nods. "But necessary ones," Marcus finishes. "The big problems don't get solved overnight, but they don't get solved at all if we don't start somewhere." As they prepare to leave, Marcus to his office, Marissa finally to her bed after the long night shift, the gas station manager emerges once more. He's hanging a freshly printed sign in the window. "Zero tolerance for harassment of any kind. All incidents will be reported to authorities." Marissa notices the sign as she climbs into her son's SUV. He'd insisted on driving her home, her own car to be picked up later. A small change, but a visible one. She thinks of the woman who finally spoke up, the manager who called police instead of looking the other way, her son who channels his experiences into creating change rather than harboring bitterness. No single person can dismantle systems built over centuries. But together, in moments of courage and connection, the foundations begin to shift. One gas station, one neighborhood, one conversation at a time. As they drive away, Marissa reaches over to squeeze her son's hand, her heart full of the complicated mixture of sadness and hope that has defined much of her life. Sadness for what is, hope for what could be. In the quiet of the car, mother and son share a look of understanding that goes beyond words. The knowledge that while today's battle might be over, the larger struggle continues. But for now, in this moment, they have each other. And sometimes that's enough to keep going.